here's Brody Brazil.
So there's been a lot of Sharks news lately, most of it really good for the franchise. And I'm not here to prioritize one thing against another, but let's be honest. Recently getting the number one pick in the draft for the very first time in franchise history, it's kind of hard to top that. Such a big deal. And when the Sharks ultimately do select Macklin Celebrini, he's got the chance to change the course of this franchise for years and decades to come. So again, not to make that overshadow this, because this is also very important news from the franchise. They have their next head coach. It's a familiar face in Ryan Warsofsky. He's been behind the bench each of the last two seasons. As an assistant, he goes through the interview process. Things go well. The players speak up for him. They want him, so that's who the team will get as the next head coach. Ryan Warsofsky has a background and a biography, which I want to detail. I also want to talk about the present, what he can accomplish here and now, and what he can hopefully do for years to come as this team's head coach. I'll first start with the big points. He's the 11th head coach in Sharks franchise history, and he'll be officially introduced in person, in public, this upcoming Monday, June 17th in San Jose. I realize the announcement was made with some quotes, and so you now know that it's official, but it'll be even more reassuring, I think, to see his face, his voice, get some of his thoughts, what he plans on doing, and kind of his background and his intentions for this team. It'll be nice to hear it eventually in his own words. He's 36 years old, or should I say 36 years young. I'm much older than 36. 36 to me feels pretty young, and it is young. He will start next season as the youngest head coach in the league, and I think there's a lot to that. It's important to have somebody who's young, who can relate to the up-and-coming players which this franchise is bound to have. Young in age, yes, but mature in experience, also very important, which he's got that background. I mean, this is not the first time he's gone from being a team's assistant to their head coach. That's actually happened to him and for him multiple times already in his young coaching career. He, of course, as you know, was an assistant on David Quinn's coaching staff each of the last two seasons, so there is some familiarity there, and for as much as there was an interview process and multiple candidates, you'd have to think that the players on the team spoke up for him when they were discussing thoughts about the new head coach. I mean, what an endorsement to get from the current players on the team that this is the guy they want. Now this is the guy that Sharks fans are going to get, Ryan Warsofsky. He was a defenseman as a player, turned a coach, a college coach, literally after his own college career ended. So he pretty much got right into coaching after being a player. I think that's special. I think that pretty much secures that he's always wanted to take this route, and now he's here at the highest of levels. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the biography. From 2013 to 2018, played hockey for Sacred Heart University and Curry College, which is where he finished, and then Curry College is where his coaching career started as an assistant coach at the D3 NCAA level. That was 2012-13. Then from 13 to 2018, he was with the South Carolina Stingrays. That's the ECHL affiliate of the Washington Capitals. During his time there, he goes from assistant of an ECHL team to their head coach. And then 2018 to 2020, Charlotte Checkers, same thing. They're the AHL affiliate of the Panthers, starts as an assistant, then gets the promotion to head coach. And so let's just stop right there. There's something to that. Somebody who does such a good job at the assistant role that he gets promoted, not just once, but this has already happened now twice in his career. I guess call it a third time, because in San Jose, from assistant to head coach. So enough people have previously seen this in his DNA or whatever that he's meant to be a head coach of respective teams. In 2020 to 22, he goes over to the Hurricanes AHL affiliate. That's the Chicago Wolves. He's their head coach. He has a lot of success there, and that ultimately leads him to his first NHL job with the San Jose Sharks. Wanted to throw in some photos there, the Calder Cup, obviously a photo of being an assistant with the San Jose organization, and the one time he wore it on the bench. And I don't remember if that was last year or 2 years ago. The time in the games, they all blend in. And I also don't remember if that was a stick or puck that got him, but he got hit right above the eyebrow during a game, got a couple zips, came right back out there just like a player, coached the rest of the game. How savage is that? I mean, former hockey player. Any surprise? And by the way, something about a defenseman turned head coach, right? Doesn't that just make a lot of sense? Certainly it does. With San Jose, an assistant on David Quinn's staff and primarily responsible for overseeing team defense and penalty kill. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, team defense was kind of a struggle of the Sharks. There were a lot of miscues. There were a lot of things that could and should have gone different without the puck for the Sharks, especially last year. We'll talk about that in just a second. He was also part of Erik Karlsson's Norris Trophy winning season of 22-23, 101 points for EK65. And in terms of the penalty kill, from 22 to the end of this last regular season, the Sharks actually ranked 18th overall in the NHL, clicking at 78.8%. Now, you're saying 18th in the league. That's a little bit below league average. But when you consider where the Sharks were as a team and transition that they went through and their makeup and their build, I mean, that's an accomplishment. And if all their other stats were middle of the pack, they'd be hunting down a playoff spot instead of finishing with the worst record in the NHL. And in terms of that team defense thing, it's important to understand that Warsofsky, as an assistant, is taking the instructions from the top down. He's not there to totally devise everything. It's not his, let's say, master plan. But now as head coach, it is. So it's hard to entirely gauge his work and his process and his efforts based on what we've seen as an assistant now to ultimately being the head coach. In terms of his personal life, I like this little piece from the Chicago Wolves website. They asked him in a Q&A when he took over as their head coach, what's your favorite sport other than hockey? Here's what he said: baseball. I was a pretty big baseball player. I was probably better at baseball than hockey. I don't know if a lot of people know that. I went to prep school at Cushing Academy and played hockey and baseball. I got recruited by some schools for baseball, but ultimately I knew I wanted to work in hockey, so I figured I should probably play hockey in college. I figured I would have a better chance. There you go. Something interesting, something noteworthy in terms of Warsofsky's background. Here's what I like about this hire. The Sharks took their time. I mean, there were, 7 or so coaching openings in the last couple weeks, and the Sharks were one of the first to create an opening, and they were kind of one of the last to fill their opening. Went through the interview process, doesn't seem like it was rushed by any means, and certainly if they had an idea that Warsofsky was a finalist or if Marco Sturm was a finalist, they had the connections, they had the ability to bring on anybody that they wanted to, so they didn't need to really rush this. I also like the fact that you'd have to think that the Sharks, as a franchise, as a front office, they could get feedback and endorsements from their current players. It really shows trust, right, to go with an internal candidate when all your players already know this internal candidate. And if they don't want that internal candidate, they can be obvious about that. What do you think about this person that you already know? Yeah, I don't know. All right, easy as that. That's not the direction we're going. But instead, in this case, what do you think about this internal candidate? Yeah, that'd be great. There you go. It's turnkey. It's what the players in the room, the respected players in the room, already want. And I'm all about internal promotions. I've seen this in my own working life. When you have somebody who's been, I don't want to say trained from within because Warsofsky's background is much deeper than just San Jose, but when you've got somebody who's come up through your system, your organization, your corporation, whatever it is, you like the fact that they kind of know things behind the scenes. They already have a head start because so much of this stuff is already ingrained in them. And yeah, I do understand that maybe for the Sharks, and some people would say, hiring from the outside would be better. You get an even fresher slate. That's also possible too. I don't want to diminish that. But I do like something about internal promotions. But as I said before, this is one where it comes with Warsofsky's own style. At this point, he gets to call all the shots. He gets to design the team defense exactly how he wants. Instead of maintaining and just following basically instructions on what to do, he's the one now that gets to call the shots in terms of team defense and pretty much everything else. So you're going to get to see Warsofsky's individual style, which is something the Sharks and their front office kind of had to dive deep into, figure out what exactly he sees in this team, what his plans are, and they have a better grasp of the future right now. They know their draft pick from last year, their top pick, Will Smith. They know who their number one pick this year is going to be. They know all the other prospects in the pipeline and likely more to come in the future. So you'd have to think that they pretty much asked him to spell it out, how you do this, how you get this job done. And going back to his age, again, I think there is a positive part about youth here. You literally are going to have one of the youngest teams in the NHL, and I think Marc-Edouard Vlasic is older than Warsofsky, and Logan Couture is a little bit younger, like maybe months younger than Warsofsky. So it's weird, right, to have players older than you on the team. There's a lot of coaches around the NHL. I think the league average is somewhere in the mid-50s, and there are some in their 60s, right? So you've got a young Ryan Warsofsky who can relate to the players, who should be able to see eye to eye with the most important parts of this team moving forward. And I'll be honest, it's the youngest players on the team. That's the most important for the future of this franchise. So somebody who's young in age, but somebody who's also mature in their experiences. I think that's huge. So what are the expectations for Warsofsky? I'm not one to sit here and say X amount of points, X amount of wins, playoffs in X amount of years. You really don't know how this is going to unfold. Is Will Smith going to be around for sure next year? Is Macklin Celebrini going to be around next year? One or the other, or both? Or do they matter? Are these just kind of training seasons? Is this implementation time? It's hard to really predict all of that, but I do want to say there are some things that are musts for me. Number one, you must properly develop your youngest players on the team. I mean, you don't spend all this time retooling, tearing it down to the studs, starting your rebuild, and give the keys to the wrong person, right? You want to put that right person, Ryan Warsofsky, behind the wheel to help develop these youngest players. Now, there are many other people behind the scenes too. Let's not gloss over the fact that he's not the only one, but he's behind the bench. He is a huge voice in the organization, and these young players coming up the right way, that's a huge responsibility. He's also, though, somebody, and if he wants to do this for the long term, he, as the next Sharks head coach, has to help turn the corner for this team of success and results. I mean, unless next year goes in where, maybe Smith isn't there or Celebrini isn't there, or they're going to have to also spend. The Sharks are at a point right now where they have to spend this summer just to get up to the salary cap floor. They're a team that traditionally goes right to the top of the salary cap top. Salary cap top. They go to the top of the salary cap on an annual basis, but because they did so much retooling, now they have to spend on players. My point is that I don't know the team structure or dynamic yet, but sooner than later, I didn't want to say how many points or how many wins or when to make the playoffs, but they need to improve things just in terms of results and success alone. That has to happen. Basically, this project can't be Warsofsky's taken over, he's developing the young players, and wins and losses don't matter. At some point, they start to matter. And I don't know when that point is, but it's going to be soon if he wants longevity in this job. And so the Sharks process looks like this, going from a struggling team to eventually a good team to eventually a great team, a Stanley Cup contending team. And right now, they're obviously in the struggling phase. And the question is, if you just look at coaching tenures across the league, how many coaches get to be the guy from struggling to good to great? It happens, but it takes a lot to go from struggling to good to great. I hope that for Ryan Warsofsky. I'm just pointing out that that is the hard part about this, is to take them through multiple steps. And that's what I was saying about must turn the corner of success and results. He's got to get them from struggling to good. You can't develop players individually without also helping the team get that good feeling surrounding it. And I also think he needs to help this team develop an identity. Any team identity. I don't think they've had one since 2018-19. Their last trip to the playoffs. And so what is their identity? And you could pick any one you want. A scoring team, good defensive team, very physical team, whatever. But they need to develop a team identity, one that can garner wins, one that they can be known for, one that can help them sustain long-term success. And I think that might be the number one thing, is to figure out what can their identity be, play towards it, and then build upon it. So there you go, Ryan Warsofsky. Got to say, by the way, nice suit and tie combo. The stitched in buttonhole there, the blue buttonhole right there on the dark blue suit, the light blue stitching. Nicely done, Ryan. Good suit there. I think that was even an AHL photo. That was even before he was an NHL assistant coach. Now he's an NHL head coach, and I can't wait to hear what he says on Monday. I congratulate him on the opportunity. I wish him the best of success. He should have a lot of things going for him in the next couple of years, all these draft picks and prospects that turn out and pan out, a lot of money to play with. So this is a large responsibility. Hopefully he's able to capitalize on it. You made it here to the end of this video. You know I really appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That'll greatly help me in this video, in this channel. And I want to see you come back here. The way to do that is to go down there and hit that subscribe button so I can definitely see you back here next time.